I'm here with an average American homemaker with her own Apple personal computer.
All in one package.
Oops, you gotta start over.
Relax, Adam.
Doesn't need a cord. You can get easy to use.
The 1980s were the decade of neon lights, big hair, cassette tapes, and a wave of technology that promised to change the world forever. It was an era when inventors and companies were willing to take bold risks, dreaming up futuristic gadgets that seemed unstoppable. But here's the twist. Not every revolutionary idea survived the test of time. For every Walkman or Nintendo console, there were bizarre flops that fell flat, leaving behind nothing but dust in the archives of forgotten tech. Today, we're digging into those curious misfires, the gadgets that were hyped, launched with confidence, but failed miserably. Join us as we delve into 25 innovative tech products from the 1980s that failed miserably. When Apple rolled out the Apple III in 1980, it was pitched as a powerful, business-ready follow-up to the wildly successful Apple II. It offered more memory, a built-in floppy drive, and faster performance, seemingly ready to capture the small business market. But Apple made a critical design oversight. The system lacked a cooling fan.
My Apple is my manager.
There are more people in more places doing more things with apples than with any other
Overheating caused chips to loosen from their sockets, leading to frequent crashes, malfunctioning drives, and failed memory modules. Businesses that depended on reliability found this unacceptable. Apple rushed fixes and redesigns, but by then, consumer confidence had evaporated. Combined with a high price tag, the Apple III became one of Apple's first high-profile commercial failures. Speaking of pricey misfires, let's talk about Laserdisc next. At first glance, Laserdisc was futuristic. Movies were stored on shiny discs roughly the size of vinyl records, offering far sharper video and audio than clunky VHS tapes. For cinephiles, it seemed like a dream come true. Released in the late 1970s and heavily marketed through the 1980s, it gave people an early taste of high-quality home video.
This is Pioneer Home Theater, with Laserdisc images 60% sharper than most VCRs, the world's leading AV receivers.
Though the format was still analog, not digital, yet it failed to reach the mainstream for one simple reason: inconvenience. The discs were bulky, often required flipping halfway through a film, and couldn't record like VHS tapes. On top of that, players and discs were significantly more expensive. While it found a small cult following among enthusiasts, the average family saw little reason to switch, leaving Laserdisc as a niche product that eventually faded from widespread use. In 1985, Sir Clive Sinclair introduced what he hoped would revolutionize personal transport: the Sinclair C5. This quirky, three-wheeled electric vehicle looked like something out of a sci-fi cartoon.
The Sinclair C5 is a fun vehicle for all the family. It's easy to drive, it's quiet, exhilarating, and extremely safe.
Low to the ground, pedal-assisted, and battery-powered, with a top speed of about 15 miles per hour. It was marketed as a cheap, eco-friendly commuting option. Sounds clever, right? Unfortunately, the reality was quite different. Its low profile made it hard for drivers of larger vehicles to see, offering little sense of safety. It provided no protection from rain or cold, and the battery performed poorly in winter. On top of that, many people thought it looked more ridiculous than futuristic. Sales collapsed almost immediately, and production ended later that same year. From a failed futuristic ride, we now move to a computer that was supposed to conquer the home market: the ill-fated Coleco A-DM. The Coleco A-DM, released in 1983, was marketed as an all-in-one home computer package. It came with a word processor, a printer, expansion options, and compatibility with ColecoVision games, making it seem like a bargain for families eager to explore both computing and gaming. But problems quickly surfaced. Many early units suffered from serious quality control issues: tape drives that erased data, printers that overheated, and memory modules that failed.
You'll never
finished by morning.
No problem.
Now, command the powers of Atom with professional keyboard, high-speed memory drive, and built-in word processor program.
Some systems didn't even work out of the box. Combined with a higher price, poor documentation, and limited software support, frustration mounted among buyers. Retailers gradually pulled back, and Coleco couldn't recover from the financial hit. The Atom was discontinued just a couple of years later, leaving it as one of the era's notable tech flops. The 1980s were full of ambitious tech that spectacularly failed. Sony's Betamax promised sharper video than VHS but lost out due to shorter recording time and high cost. Apple's Apple III aimed at businesses but overheated, crashed constantly, and was overpriced. Laserdisc offered cinephiles stunning picture and sound, yet its bulky, flip-required discs and high price kept it niche.
IBM introduces PC Junior, a bright little addition to the family. Junior comes with bright computer ideas.
Sinclair's C5, a low-slung electric trike, proved unsafe and impractical, disappearing almost immediately. Coleco's Atom computer came with a printer and word processor but suffered major quality issues and poor software support. IBM's PCJR, meant for families, had a flimsy chiclet keyboard, limited compatibility, and high cost. Each promised innovation but flopped, leaving them as relics of overambition. If you think IBM misread the market badly, the next story about a talking teddy bear will make you shake your head. The original Teddy Ruxpin, released in 1985, was an instant sensation, a cuddly bear that moved its mouth and eyes while reading stories from cassette tapes hidden in its back.
Hi, my name is Teddy Ruxpin. Can you and I be friends?
Yeah.
I really enjoy talking to people. I would like...
Kids loved it, and parents rushed to buy one. But follow-up versions in the late 1980s ran into trouble. The bear and its accessories were expensive, and the mechanics often failed, leaving a silent, staring toy instead of a talking companion. Cheaper competitors soon appeared, making Teddy feel less special. The novelty faded quickly, sales dropped, and unsold units piled up, turning one of the decade's most innovative toys into a cautionary tale of overhyped tech. Atari was once the king of video games, but by the early 1980s, its empire was crumbling. The Atari 7800, released in 1986, was meant to reclaim the market from Nintendo's NES. It boasted stronger graphics, backward compatibility with Atari 2600 games, and a library of arcade classics. On paper, it looked like a winner, but timing was everything.
The more game cartridges a video game system plays, the more fun it is. And the Atari 7800 plays more games than the competition, and they're about half the price.
By the launch, Nintendo had already dominated with hit titles and an unbeatable marketing machine. The 7000s, 8s, 100s game library felt dated. Third-party support was weak, and Atari's reputation after the 1983 video game crash made buyers wary. Sales remained sluggish, and the console quickly faded. The Atari 7800's backward glance couldn't outpace Nintendo's speed. Ever wondered if a colorful rival system could conquer America, or just fade into European footnotes? Globally, the Sega Master System wasn't a total failure. It performed well in Europe and Brazil, but in the United States, it's remembered as one of the great missteps of the 1980s. Sega launched it in 1986, directly against Nintendo's NES. The Master System had better graphics, more vibrant colors, and even 3D glasses accessories. Technically, it should have been a hit.
Sega challenges you with the ultimate video game, the Sega Master System.
Hang on!
With more accurate control, more detailed graphics.
But Nintendo had already captured the American market with its exclusive licensing deals and iconic titles like Super Mario Bros. And The Legend of Zelda. The Master System just couldn't compete without strong third-party support. American kids wanted what their friends were playing, and that meant Nintendo. The Master System limped along with minimal impact in the US, even though it thrived overseas. In 1979, Polaroid introduced Polavision, an ambitious attempt to bring instant home movies to consumers. The concept was exciting: record video and play it back immediately.
Polaroid, the inventor of instant pictures, announces what may be an even more significant development: instant movies. Polaroid calls it Polavision.
But the system fell short. Each cassette recorded only about 2.5 minutes. The image quality was dark and murky, and there was no audio. Users needed a special projector, adding cost and inconvenience, and the price of film and equipment was high. By the time Polavision reached consumers, VHS and Betamax offered longer recording times, reusable tapes, and sound. Sales flopped, Polaroid lost $68.5 million, and the failure contributed to founder Edwin Land's resignation. From this stumble, let's move to a television experiment that baffled buyers: the RCA Selectavision CED system. RCA's Selectavision Capacitance Electronic Disc System, released in 1981, was a true oddball. It used vinyl-like discs to play movies on your TV, offering decent quality video without the hassle of tape rewinding.
Compact, attractive, easily affordable RCA video disc player. Carefully engineered by RCA for simplicity and ease of operation. Watch. This is an...
On paper, it seemed like a cheaper alternative to VHS or Betamax, but in practice it was riddled with problems. The discs wore out quickly, the system couldn't record, and player mechanisms often failed. By the time RCA rolled it out nationwide, VHS had already dominated the market. Consumers weren't interested in another incompatible format, especially one that cost more and offered less. RCA poured about $1 billion into the project, only for it to disappear within a few years. The Power Glove, released in 1989, promised to transform gaming forever. Strap on a futuristic glove, wave your hand, and suddenly you're controlling games in 3D space. At least, that was the dream. Commercials made it look revolutionary, like something out of The Matrix. Kids begged their parents for one. But once it landed in living rooms, disappointment set in fast.
The Power Glove for your NES. Now you and the games are one.
The controls were clunky, inaccurate, and most games didn't support it. Even the games designed specifically for the glove barely worked as advertised. Instead of feeling immersive, it was frustrating and unresponsive. The Power Glove became infamous as one of gaming's greatest gimmicks, remembered more for its cool appearance than actual functionality. The Power Glove's Matrix dreams turned into control nightmares. Ever dreamed of pocket-sized TV magic that fits in your hand but barely fits on your screen? In the 1980s, Sony unveiled the Watchman, a portable handheld TV that promised live television anywhere. The idea was futuristic. Pull a small device from your pocket and catch your favorite show on the go, but it stumbled in practice.
You're about to see the Me TV, the Sony Watchman. It's the She TV, the Luigi TV, the first truly personal...
The tiny black and white screens were hard to see, reception was inconsistent, and the design was bulkier than advertised. On top of that, most people didn't feel the need for a pocket TV when TVs were already everywhere at home or in public spaces. Clever, but unnecessary, the Watchman became more of a novelty than a must-have device. By 1987, IBM dominated the business computer market but was losing ground to cheaper clones copying the IBM PC. To regain control, it launched the PS/2 series with the proprietary microchannel architecture, MCA, a technically advanced bus that promised faster performance. IBM expected businesses to upgrade quickly, but MCA was largely incompatible with existing hardware and software, and licensing fees for clone makers were steep. Many businesses avoided the hassle, and clone manufacturers refused to adopt the standard.
Attractive front of the case, there is an oddly standard 3.5-inch 1.44 meg flash.
Sales fell short of expectations, and instead of reclaiming market dominance, IBM alienated partners and customers. The PS/2 line became a classic example of a technically ambitious but commercially flawed product. In 1982, Kodak launched the disc camera, marketed as a compact, futuristic alternative to bulky 35mm models. Instead of traditional rolls, it used flat, disc-shaped film cartridges that snapped neatly into place, making loading easy and the design pocket-sized. Families appreciated the convenience and sleek look, but the tiny 8x11mm negatives produced disappointing results.
So you can capture those wonderful moments you may have been missing.
Photos often looked grainy and blurry, falling far short of expectations and drawing scorn from professionals. Initial excitement quickly faded as the flaws became obvious. Kodak discontinued production of disc cameras by the late 1980s, and although film lingered for another decade, the format soon vanished. Today, the disc camera is remembered as a bold but failed 1980s experiment in photography technology. Before the Macintosh, Apple released the Lisa in 1983, a computer years ahead of its time. It featured a graphical user interface with icons and windows, revolutionary in an era dominated by text commands. The problem was its astronomical price, nearly $10,000, equivalent to over $25,000 today. Most businesses couldn't justify it, and home users were completely priced out. Performance issues didn't help. The Lisa was slow, buggy, and lacked sufficient software support. While the Macintosh would later refine and popularize the GUI concept, the Lisa remained a brilliant idea that failed commercially. It became a cautionary tale of innovation outpacing practicality, remembered more for its cost and flaws than its forward-thinking design. The Lisa's windowed vision stayed behind pricey glass. Could a dirt-cheap home computer under $100 democratize tech, or just tape its way to frustration? The Timex Sinclair 1000 hit the US in 1982 with an enticing promise: a home computer for under $100. A rebadged Sinclair ZX81 from the UK, it aimed to bring computing into the average household. Yet, the bargain came at a cost. With just 2 kilobytes of RAM,
and today we are looking at this tiny
a calculator-like membrane keyboard, and software loaded slowly from cassette tapes, the machine was frustrating to use. Add-on modules existed but were unstable, often crashing with the slightest bump. Despite selling over 500,000 units, most buyers abandoned it quickly. By 1983, more capable and affordable systems like the Commodore 64 and Apple II made it irrelevant. The Sinclair 1000 proved that price alone couldn't overcome poor design and usability. The Vectrex hit US shelves in 1982, setting itself apart from every other game console of its era. It came with its own built-in vector graphics display. Where competitors relied on televisions, the Vectrex offered crisp, arcade-style glowing lines on a small vertical screen, complete with plastic overlays for color effects. Technically impressive, it promised to bring the arcade home in a self-contained package. But the timing was brutal. The system was expensive at around $199, game cartridges cost more than rivals, and by 1983 the video game market collapsed.
Mini, and it's on display there at the one of the booths there at Gamescom, right?
Consumers opted for cheaper consoles or waited for sturdier platforms like the NES. By 1984, the Vectrex was discontinued. Remembered not as a market leader, but as a bold detour, an elegant piece of engineering that simply arrived at the wrong moment. The Emerson Arcadia 2001 launched in the US in 1982, aiming to ride the home console boom with sleek styling and a wide range of branded clones worldwide. Technically, it offered modest upgrades over the Atari 2600, with better graphics and sound, and promised a fresh library of games. But the timing was catastrophic.
Vision had it and television had it. I don't know why they like these telephone-style controls.
Within months, ColecoVision and the Atari 5200 arrived with far stronger capabilities, while licensing issues crippled the Arcadia's lineup. It shipped with only a handful of original titles, many of them uninspired, and lacked the arcade hits that drew players to rivals. By the time the video game crash of 1983 hit, the Arcadia was already collapsing. Discontinued soon after, it survives mostly as a curiosity, one of many early 80s consoles that proved incremental improvements weren't enough when competitors were leaping ahead. The Arcadia, 2001's modest upgrades got lapped by the pack. Could Mattel's 80s system promise educational fun, or just chicklet its way to obsolescence? The Mattel Aquarius launched in 1983 with flashy ads calling it the system for the 1980s. In truth, it was outdated from day one. Marketed as a low-cost home computer, it shipped with just 4 kilobytes of RAM, a rubber chiclet keyboard, and meager software support. Mattel promised a wide ecosystem of educational and entertainment titles.
Trouble made typing inaccurate and tiring during longer sessions.
But most never arrived, leaving a shallow library and clunky add-ons. Against rivals like the Commodore 64, Atari 800, and Apple II, machines with more power, better graphics, and strong developer bases, the Aquarius never stood a chance. Sales were so poor that Mattel abandoned the project within the same year, returning it to its original manufacturer. It remains one of the shortest-lived computers of the decade, undone by empty hype. Sony's 1983 Betamovie camcorder tried to revolutionize home video by merging camera and recorder into a single device, eliminating the need to juggle separate gear. On paper, it looked futuristic. In practice, it was frustrating. The Betamovie could record but not play back footage, forcing families to buy a separate Betamax VCR just to see what they had filmed. Heavy, power-hungry, and expensive, it was inconvenient in the very moments it promised to simplify.
About it being in the way or hitting the camera and making noise. Now, the mic is actually in...
Meanwhile, VHS was winning the format war, making Betamovie's Betamax tapes even less appealing. By the late 1980s, the product was discontinued, remembered less as a breakthrough than as a cautionary tale, an ambitious idea undone by poor usability and bad timing. The Betamovie's all-in-one weighed down family memories, ever sketched pixels with a touchpad dream, only to erase creativity in a haze of clunky saves. Atari's 1984 CX-77 touch tablet tried to bring digital art into the home, offering a pen, pad, and screen as a futuristic canvas. Marketed as a way to let anyone draw with pixels, it hinted at a creative future when home computers were still new. But the promise collapsed in practice. The tablet required extra hardware just to save drawings. Supported only a handful of clumsy programs, and felt awkward to use. Rather than sparking creativity, it frustrated users with complexity and poor integration. Sales were dismal, and Atari abandoned the device soon after launch. Today, the CX-77 is remembered less as a breakthrough than as a misstep, an early lesson that without simplicity and strong software, even visionary hardware can flop. Apple's first battery-powered Macintosh promised freedom from the desk, but delivered frustration instead. Weighing nearly 16 pounds and built like a luggable suitcase, it strained the definition of portable. Its sealed lead-acid battery was so unreliable that the machine sometimes refused to run even when plugged in, and the launch price, over $6,000, made the compromises harder to swallow. For professionals, it did provide full Macintosh software on the move.
Portable, it doesn't have a backlit screen or any color capabilities. Upon trying to
But true mobility was illusory. Consumers wanted lighter, longer-lasting machines, not a desktop in disguise. The portable's short life underscored a hard truth. Portability has to be practical, not theoretical. Apple's later PowerBooks succeeded precisely because they fixed the weight, battery, and usability failures this experiment exposed. The Macintosh portable suitcase struggles grounded its flight. Could a kid's cassette camcorder capture movie magic, or just flicker into forgettable shadows? The Fisher-Price PXL 2000 promised to put movie making in children's hands but delivered frustration instead. Released in 1987, it recorded black and white video onto standard audio cassettes, an ingenious hack that produced ghostly, flickering images at very low resolution. The novelty came at a steep price, around $200 at launch, yet recording time barely stretched past 10 minutes per cassette side, and the results were nearly unwatchable.
But luckily, every time I filled up a tape, I dumped it onto a VHS tape and then went back and reused the original tape. But I gotta tell you, this was like the...
Parents expecting clear memories got murky shadows, and kids lost interest quickly. Although the camera later gained a cult following among experimental filmmakers in the 1990s and 2000s, in its own time, it failed as a consumer product. Discontinued by 1990, it is remembered less as a breakthrough than as a cautionary tale of 1980s tech overreach. The Amiga 1000 debuted in 1985, promising a new era of multimedia computing with advanced graphics, stereo sound, and multitasking that eclipsed most PCs of its time. It attracted gamers, musicians, and digital artists who glimpsed its potential as a creative tool. Yet, in the US mainstream, the platform faltered. Commodore's weak marketing, fragmented hardware line, and inconsistent software support left the Amiga struggling against the rising tide of IBM-compatible PCS and Apple Macs.
Of course, there were third-party productivity applications such as this one. It offered full-color, what you see is what you get style editing, something still relatively new at the time.
Even its later models, the Amiga 500, 1000, 200, and 2000, couldn't overcome the growing dominance of standardized platforms. By 1994, Commodore had gone bankrupt, and the Amiga vanished from store shelves. Though remembered fondly by enthusiasts, it stands as a cautionary tale. Cutting-edge hardware without strong market strategy or developer backing is destined to fade. The Amiga's creative fireworks faded without fanfare. What if a storybook console let kids steer VHS adventures, but steered straight into setup snags? The ViewMaster Interactive Vision arrived in 1988, pitched as a fusion of storybook learning and video gaming. Using VHS tapes, a console, and a joystick, it promised interactive narratives where kids could guide the action on screen. In practice, it was awkward.
But I've not had to use it, it seems to work fine. As you'd expect with an American machine, you have a channel 3 and 4 selector switch, so that you can...
The system required a separate VCR, setup was clumsy, and the interactivity amounted to basic overlays and limited choices. Compared with cartridge-based consoles like the NES, it felt slow, shallow, and more chore than play. Parents found it expensive and confusing, and children quickly lost interest. By the early 1990s, the Interactive Vision was discontinued, remembered less as a breakthrough than as an over-engineered curiosity that proved clever hybrids can flop without simplicity and fun.